In a world that constantly pushes us to be better, prettier, more remarkable, it's easy to mistake shining for being loud, showy, and constantly in the spotlight. But the truth is, that's not the only way to shine. There is another kind of brilliance, gentle yet profound, steady yet meaningful, that comes from truly knowing who you are, living in alignment with your values, and committing to your personal growth every day. Shining doesn't always mean flashing lights, grand achievements, or thunderous applause. Sometimes it's the quiet glow that radiates from within the calm and the chaos, the strength to stand tall through life's storms, the grace to remain kind in a world full of competition and pressure. Did you know? Some people may appear incredibly successful and admired, yet feel empty on the inside. And others, seemingly ordinary, carry an invisible glow that draws others in. Their power comes from authenticity, unwavering values, and a rare inner peace. That's the light of self-connection, something no money can buy, no performance can fake. So how can you find that kind of light within yourself? What makes a woman extraordinary without needing to show off? And why is this kind of inner radiance more sustainable and valuable than any external glamour? In this journey, we'll explore the quiet power of living true to yourself. You'll discover timeless principles that help you grow in a way that feels right, not to prove anything to the world, but to become someone you are deeply proud to be. That's where your real shine begins, soft, strong, and lasting. 1. Understanding and accepting yourself. The root of true radiance. A woman cannot radiate her unique light if she is still lost in the shadows of self-doubt. For many of us, the journey begins not with learning more, doing more, or becoming more, but with pausing, with asking ourselves, sometimes for the first time in years, who am I when I'm not performing a role? When I'm not being the employee, the partner, the friend, the daughter, who am I at the core? These questions are not easy. They often stir discomfort, especially when we spent so long molding ourselves to meet expectations of our own or others, but they are essential. Because the truth is, no external success, no validation, no amount of praise can fill the quiet emptiness that comes from not living in alignment with who we truly are. We chase achievements, polish our image, master the art of being put together, but deep down, something still feels slightly off. Like we're wearing shoes that almost fit, but not quite. To truly shine, we must return to ourselves. Not the curated version of ourselves, but the honest one. The self who has strengths, yes, but also fears. Who can be ambitious, but also tired. Who can be nurturing, but also needs space. Self-acceptance doesn't mean we stop evolving. It means we stop rejecting the parts of us that are still in progress. It means we no longer define our worth by how perfectly we perform, but by how authentically we show up. There is incredible power in simply owning who you are, even when it feels unfinished. Because when a woman knows and accepts herself, she stops seeking light from external sources. She becomes her own source of radiance. Her presence speaks for itself. It is not loud, but it is unmistakable. She no longer lives according to someone else's script, but writes her own page by page, choice by choice. This kind of presence doesn't demand attention. It attracts it quietly, naturally, without force. And it's not about being better than anyone else. It's about being at peace with yourself. That peace, that clarity, that alignment is the foundation of sustainable growth, of the kind of self-development that nourishes you instead of exhausting you. Too often, we confuse self-acceptance with stagnation. But in reality, it is the opposite. When you no longer waste energy hiding parts of yourself or pretending to be someone you're not, you create space for real transformation. You grow not out of shame or pressure, but out of love, and that kind of growth is the most powerful of all. So take a moment to sit with yourself. Not to judge, not to critique, but simply to see. To witness your thoughts without running from them. To hear your own voice underneath the noise. What do you really want? Not what you think you should want. What feels true, not what feels impressive. These are the questions that lead us home. And from that place of inner clarity, Your light begins to glow not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you are finally aligned with your own truth. You don't have to shine like anyone else. You don't have to be loud, visible, or constantly inspiring. You just have to be real grounded in who you are and committed to becoming more of that every day. That is the kind of radiance that never fades. 2. Lifelong learning. To expand inner strength, not to chase appearances. There comes a point in every woman's life when she begins to question why she's doing what she's doing. Why is she attending that course, reading that book, taking on that new responsibility? Is it truly for her growth, or is it just another way of proving she can keep up? In a world that constantly pushes us to accumulate more knowledge, more certifications, more value, it's easy to confuse learning with performance. We start to see education not as nourishment, but as ammunition. Something to arm ourselves with in the silent competition of modern life, where staying relevant sometimes feels like a full-time job. When learning becomes another item on a checklist, another way to impress, to belong, to not be left behind, we begin to lose the essence of what it means to truly grow. True growth, the kind that quietly but powerfully transforms a person, does not come from constant comparison. It doesn't arise from mimicking others or jumping into every trend just to stay afloat. It comes from curiosity, from openness, from the gentle but persistent desire to understand not just the world, but ourselves in it. A woman who continues to learn with this intention to nourish her inner world, rather than chase validation, begins to cultivate a different kind of energy. She becomes deeply rooted. Her words carry weight not because they echo what's popular, but because they stem from genuine reflection and independent thought. She becomes more grounded in her values, more articulate in her expression, more intuitive in her decisions, and this quiet intelligence, this subtle clarity, becomes her unique form of magnetism. It's important to remember that education is not confined to classrooms or formal settings. Some of our most profound lessons come from heartbreaks, disappointments, and the quiet realizations that follow sleepless nights. A woman who embraces both intellectual learning and emotional growth expands in every direction, mind, heart, and spirit. And she doesn't rush the process. She doesn't devour information to feel superior. She savors it, integrates it, allows it to change her slowly from within. The truth is, when we're constantly trying to catch up, we never feel enough. No matter how much we do or learn, there's always someone doing more. But when we learn to understand, to genuinely understand, something shifts. Learning becomes a journey inward. It becomes less about adding more and more about deepening what already exists within us. That's the essence of sustainable personal development. Depth, not breadth. Clarity, not complexity. When you begin to learn not just with your intellect, but also with your insight, you stop echoing others and start forming your own voice. And there is something remarkably powerful about a woman who thinks for herself, not loudly, not rebelliously, but thoughtfully. She does not argue to win. She questions to understand. She listens to those she disagrees with, not to debate, but to learn something she hadn't considered. Her critical thinking is not harsh. It is precise. Her independence is not loud. It is stable. And in this, she stands out not by trying, but by being. We often underestimate how attractive intellectual confidence can be. Not the kind that talks over others or dominates conversations, but the kind that asks thoughtful questions, considers nuance, and seeks truth over attention. A woman who reads to understand herself, who reflects on ideas before adopting them, who allows her opinions to evolve, she becomes someone others naturally gravitate toward. Not for entertainment, but for insight. Not for distraction, but for depth. This kind of radiance can't be faked. It doesn't come from a list of accomplishments or eloquent quotes memorized from self-help books. It comes from lived experience processed, examined, and owned. And while it might not earn immediate applause, So if you're in a season where everyone seems to be moving faster, achieving more, leveling up at every turn pauses, ask yourself, am I learning this because I want to become more of who I truly am? Or am I learning this because I fear being left behind? The answer will shape not just what you learn, but how deeply it changes you. Because in the end, the most magnetic woman in the room is not necessarily the one who knows everything. She's the one who knows herself, who doesn't pretend to have all the answers, but is unafraid to keep asking the right questions. She shines not because she's loud, but because her wisdom is felt. Learning, when done from this place, becomes a way of coming home to yourself again and again, with every new piece of knowledge, every changed belief, every fresh perspective. It's not about keeping up, it's about becoming whole. 3. Taking care of yourself, not selfish, but a personal responsibility. There is a quiet strength in choosing to care for yourself. For many women, the idea of self-care is tangled with guilt, as though taking a break, setting boundaries, or prioritizing well-being somehow takes away from their worth. But the truth is, we cannot offer the best of ourselves to others if we are constantly running on empty. Self-care is not indulgent. It's not a reward after doing everything for everyone else. It's a foundational responsibility to your mind, your body, and your spirit. Taking care of yourself means respecting your need for rest, nourishment, and emotional space. It means treating your energy like a valuable resource, not something to be spent recklessly. Too often, we celebrate women for being selfless, for giving endlessly, for enduring silently. But blind sacrifice does not make us stronger. It often leaves us disconnected from ourselves, resenting those we once felt happy to support. A woman who ignores her own needs may appear generous on the outside, but internally, she may be overwhelmed, depleted, or even numb. Imagine instead a woman who listens to her body and honors her limits. She knows when to say no and when to slow down. She makes time for sleep, movement, healthy meals, and emotional check-ins. She doesn't apologize for needing solitude or space. She understands that when she is well, everything she gives her love, attention, and work comes from a place of presence, not pressure. Taking care of yourself is not about withdrawing from life. It's about showing up more fully, more intentionally. A well-nourished woman is more focused, more compassionate, and more magnetic, not because she's trying harder, but because she's whole. We need to shift the way we think about strength. It's not about pushing through no matter what. It's about knowing when to pause, when to ask for support, and when to refill. It's about being responsible enough to protect your peace and wise enough to know your limits. When a woman takes care of herself, she sets a quiet example. She shows others without preaching that burnout is not a badge of honor. That showing up for others does not require the abandonment of self. That love and boundaries can exist in the same breath. So the next time you hesitate to rest or to prioritize your well-being, remind yourself, self-care is not selfish. It's your foundation. Without it, everything else becomes harder. But with it, you become rooted, clear, and resilient. You don't need to earn the right to care for yourself. You already deserve it simply because you are human. 4. Setting boundaries to protect the light within. One of the most powerful acts of self-respect a woman can take is learning how to set and maintain healthy boundaries. In a world that often praises women for being agreeable, accommodating, and self-sacrificing, the idea of drawing clear lines may feel foreign or even selfish, but in truth, boundaries are not barriers to love. They are the framework that allows love, respect, and mutual understanding to exist in a safe and sustainable way. When we neglect our own boundaries, we slowly dim the light within us. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens in small moments when we say, yes, even though we mean no. When we allow our time or emotional space to be invaded. When we silence our discomfort just to avoid confrontation. Over time, these seemingly minor compromises erode our sense of self, leaving us tired, frustrated, and disconnected. A woman with strong boundaries is not cold or distant. On the contrary, she is deeply present because she doesn't feel the need to constantly defend or overextend herself. She has clarity about what she values and what she will or will not tolerate. Her no is not a rejection of others, but a deep affirmation of her own worth. Setting boundaries does not mean shutting people out. It means letting the right people in, those who honor your energy, your truth, and your space. Boundaries are not walls to keep the world away. They are the gentle fences that protect your inner garden, allowing you to grow in peace. This is not about drawing lines in anger. It's about doing so with calm and intention. It's not about control. It's about clarity. A woman who knows her limits is not weak. She's grounded. She does not fear disappointing others if staying true to herself means saying no. True connection is only possible when people can be themselves, fully, safely, and without fear of being consumed. And that starts with each of us defining what is okay and what is not. So remember, protecting your boundaries is not a selfish act. It is a vital part of sustaining your emotional health and keeping your inner light burning. Your peace is not up for negotiation, and your worth is not measured by how much you tolerate. 5. Choose resonance over rivalry, lighting the sky together. In a world that often teaches us to measure our worth by how we compare to others, choosing collaboration over competition is a radical and deeply empowering act. As women, we are frequently placed in silent races we never agreed to run, whose success shines brighter, whose voice is heard louder, whose life seems more enviable. But the truth is, we don't have to be better than someone else to be valuable. We only need to be authentically ourselves. A truly strong woman is not threatened by the light of another. Instead, she sees it as a reflection of what is also possible for her. She doesn't allow envy to take root where inspiration can grow. When she witnesses another's success, she chooses to celebrate, to learn, and to support. This mindset is not naive, it is deeply intentional. It takes inner strength to recognize that another person's growth does not diminish your own. In a time where unspoken competition often overshadows connection, the ability to genuinely uplift others is a sign of profound personal power. It takes far more courage to say, "I'm happy for you," and mean it, than to silently compete and compare. A woman who can offer sincere praise, extend a helping hand, and cheer for someone else's breakthrough without feeling smaller herself embodies a level of self-awareness that cannot be faked. What she understands is this: light doesn't cancel out light, it multiplies it. When we allow ourselves to shine alongside others, we don't get lost. We create constellations. We form communities rooted in trust, mutual respect, and shared strength. And in that space, we all grow not in the shadow of each other, but under the shared sky we brighten together. This doesn't mean you have to be close to everyone or agree with everything, but it does mean choosing a way of relating to the world that is grounded in wholeness, not scarcity. That there is enough room for everyone to thrive, and that someone else's glow is not a threat, but a mirror. So rather than playing roles in a quiet competition, choose to resonate. Find joy in others' victories. Offer support without conditions. And know that when one of us rises, it opens space for the rest of us to rise too. Because the brightest night skies aren't lit by a single star, but by the harmony of many. 6. Don't live for the spotlight. Real light shines on its own. There comes a point when a woman realizes that chasing validation is like running after the wind. No matter how fast you go, it's never quite within your grasp. The praise of others can be uplifting for a moment, but if we make it the cornerstone of our self-worth, we give away our freedom piece by piece. When we live for likes, approval, or applause, we unknowingly build a cage that looks like a stage. True radiance doesn't depend on being noticed. It flows from within, quiet and steady. It's the kind of confidence that doesn't need to be clapped for in order to stand tall. When a woman reaches a place where she can feel proud of herself even when no one is watching, that's when she's truly free. And that's when her light becomes unshakable. In a world that often defines worth by popularity, trends, and public perception, it takes courage to live by your own values. To wear what feels like you, not what's expected. To choose a slower path when everyone else is rushing. To say, this is enough in a culture that's always shouting more. Living authentically doesn't always look impressive to others, but it always feels right to the soul. It's important to remember that being true to yourself might not always draw a crowd, but it will draw the right people. When you stop trying to fit in and start standing in your truth, you naturally attract those who are aligned with your energy. People who respect you not for what you show, but for who you are when the spotlight is off. And no, this doesn't mean shutting yourself off from connection or becoming indifferent to kindness. It simply means choosing to be led by your own compass rather than someone else's map. Choosing to trust your instincts more than public opinion. Choosing to be at peace rather than constantly performing. There's nothing wrong with appreciation or recognition. But when they become the goal instead of a byproduct of living well, they lose their meaning. A woman who glows from within doesn't need external validation to know her worth. Her calm becomes her clarity. Her authenticity, her magnetism. So let your light shine not to impress, but to express. And know that the most powerful light is often the one that doesn't seek attention, yet somehow always gets noticed. Conclusion, lasting radiance begins from within. At the heart of every lasting glow is not perfection, but presence. As women, we often feel the subtle pressure to prove our worth to be the best, the brightest, the most put together in order to be seen, heard, or loved. But the truth is far gentler. You do not need to be flawless to be valuable. You do not need to be extraordinary to deserve a voice. You are allowed to simply be, and that is more than enough. Real light doesn't demand a stage. It grows quietly, steadily through self-awareness, honesty, and daily intention. When we stop trying to meet every external expectation and start honoring our own pace, our own truth, we create space for authenticity to thrive. And that authenticity is powerful not because it shouts, but because it's rooted. A woman who chooses to evolve, even in silence, shines in ways that no spotlight can replicate. Her presence speaks louder than any performance. Her growth, though often invisible to others, becomes a private victory that needs no audience. The beauty of this kind of radiance is that it cannot be taken away because it was never given by someone else to begin with. You don't have to rush. You don't have to compete. You don't need to fit anyone's mold. The journey of shining from within is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you've always been beneath the noise. With sincerity, resilience, and a quiet commitment to growth, you carry the kind of light that doesn't fade. It stays through joy and challenge, through solitude and connection. So walk your path with grace, not pressure. You don't need to be dazzled. You only need to be true. And in doing so, you become a steady flame in a world full of flickering lights. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.